The forbidden rescue. The night sky burned red with fire as explosions echoed across the alien battlefield. Smoke rose from the ruins of the once beautiful Zetherian city, and the sound of war machines filled the air. The great Zetherian Empire had crushed human colonies for years, believing humans were weak, small, and unworthy of the stars. But today, one human soldier refused to die quietly. His name was Ethan Cole, a pilot from Earth's defense fleet. His fighter ship had been shot down behind enemy lines, deep inside Zetherian territory. As his escape pod crashed through the forest, metal twisted and flames surrounded him. He crawled out coughing, his suit torn, his arm bleeding, but he was alive. "Just my luck," he muttered softly, looking around at the alien landscape glowing under two purple moons. Ethan knew he had to move fast. The Zetherians would search for him soon, and no human captured by them had ever returned. He grabbed his blaster and started walking toward the shadows of the trees. Every step crunched on strange red leaves, and glowing insects floated in the air like tiny stars. He had been trained to survive, but this world was unlike any he had ever seen. Then he heard something, a faint sound like a voice. Weak and afraid, he stopped, listening carefully. Through the smoke and fire, he saw a small silver ship lying broken in the valley below. It wasn't human. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal. Curiosity pushed him forward. He moved closer, his boots sinking in the soft soil. When he reached the wreck, he saw movement inside. Someone was trapped. Through the cracked window he saw her, a young alien woman, her skin pale blue with faint silver lines, her eyes glowing softly like starlight. She looked scared and hurt, blood dripping from her shoulder. When she saw him, her eyes widened in shock. "A human?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Ethan froze, his finger tightening on his blaster. He had heard stories. The Zetherian princess, daughter of the alien queen, was leading the invasion on the human front. Could this really be her? He looked at her wounds, then at his gun. He knew what his orders said. No mercy to the enemy, especially not their leaders, but something inside him stopped him. She was hurt, helpless, afraid. "Don't move," he said, his voice low. She closed her eyes, expecting death, but instead, Ethan holstered his weapon and pulled at the broken metal. The heat burned his hands, but he didn't stop. Piece by piece, he cleared the wreckage until he could pull her out. She gasped in pain as he lifted her into his arms. "You're safe now," he said quietly, though he knew that was a lie. Carrying her through the forest, he searched for a place to hide. Every noise made him look back. Zetherian patrol drones flew above the trees. Searching for survivors, he found a cave near a cliff. Half hidden by hanging vines, inside it was dark, cool, and quiet. He laid her down gently on the ground. Why did you save me?" she asked weakly, her voice soft but sharp with confusion. Ethan shrugged, pulling a small med kit from his bag. "Because you were going to die," he said simply, cleaning her wound. "You're human," she said, as if it were a curse. "Yeah," he replied, "and you're the one who got shot down in your own sky." She turned her face away, shame flickering in her glowing eyes. As the night deepened, distant engines roared. Ethan peeked outside the cave. Alien soldiers moved across the forest, their armor shining under the moons. They were searching for her. He looked back at the alien girl. Now unconscious, he couldn't leave her. Even if it meant his death, he whispered to himself, "This is crazy, Ethan. Saving an alien princess." But his hands didn't stop tending her wounds. He gave her some water, wrapped his jacket around her shoulders, and sat near the cave entrance with his weapon ready. He could feel the heat of the burning forest outside, and the cold wind that swept through the cave. Somewhere above the clouds, alien warships circled, and human distress calls echoed faintly on his broken comlink. Hours passed. When she woke again, she looked at him, confused, weak, and afraid. "What's your name, human?" she asked. "Ethan," he said. "Ethan Cole." She whispered her name too. "Lyra, Princess Lyra of Zetheria." He blinked in surprise but didn't move. "So I just saved the enemy princess," he said with a half smile. She looked at him, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Outside, thunder rolled as alien ships landed nearby. Ethan loaded his blaster and looked toward the entrance. He turned to her and said, "If they find us, you run, understand?" She shook her head slowly. "They will kill you for helping me." He smiled faintly. "Then I'll just have to make sure they don't." A sudden light flashed outside. Search drones, Ethan whispered. Stay quiet. The sound of footsteps grew louder. Lyra gripped his arm, her eyes wide with fear. For the first time in her life, a human was protecting her, not fighting her, not hating her. And for the first time, Ethan didn't see an enemy. He saw someone who needed him. Outside, a voice shouted in the alien tongue. Ethan raised his weapon and took a deep breath. The cave filled with tension, the sound of distant thunder, and the steady beat of two hearts from two different worlds. Then the scene faded into darkness, leaving only the echo of his whisper, "Stay quiet. I'll get you home." The secret shelter when morning came. The sky above the forest was quiet again. Smoke from the battlefield drifted slowly across the hills, painting the air gray and red. Inside the cave, Ethan sat awake, his eyes heavy but alert. He had not slept all night, his blaster resting on his lap. Beside him, the alien princess, Lyra, slept wrapped in his torn jacket, her breathing soft and shallow. He looked at her, still not believing what he had done. A human soldier saving the daughter of the alien queen. It sounded like madness, but when he saw her wounds and the fear in her eyes, he couldn't walk away, he whispered to himself. Guess I'm already in too deep. Lyra woke slowly, blinking against the dim light that slipped into the cave. She looked around, confusion flickering in her glowing eyes. The human was still there, watching the entrance like a guard. She spoke softly, her voice weak. You stayed?" Ethan smiled tiredly. "Yeah, couldn't let you get eaten by the wildlife." She tilted her head, not sure if he was joking. Her people said humans were violent, heartless creatures, yet this one looked tired, wounded but kind. "Why did you help me?" she asked again, her voice calm this time. Ethan sighed. "Because you needed help and I was there." She frowned. "Even though I am your enemy?" He looked at her for a moment, then said quietly, "Not right now. You're just someone who needs to live." The words hung in the air, heavy but honest. Lyra didn't answer, but she felt something strange in her chest, something she had never felt before, a warmth that made her forget for a moment who she was supposed to hate. Outside, the forest whispered with life. Strange glowing birds flew between the trees, and the wind carried the low hum of distant machines. Ethan stepped out carefully, scanning the area through his cracked visor. He saw footprints, not human, not his. "They're searching," he muttered. He returned to the cave, crouching beside her. "We have to move. It's not safe here." Lyra tried to stand but winced in pain, her leg trembling. Ethan caught her arm gently. "Easy, princess. You're not ready to run marathons yet." Her eyes narrowed. "Do not call me princess," he smirked. "Fine." "Your Highness," she gave him a glare, but he only chuckled softly. Together they left the cave, moving through the shadows of the forest. Ethan supported her as they walked, every step slow and cautious. He led her toward an old communication outpost he had seen while falling from the sky. It might be abandoned, or dangerous, but it was their only chance as they walked. Lyra watched the human's face. He looked tired, scarred, but determined. "Your people, they fight even when they cannot win," she said quietly. Ethan shrugged. "That's what makes us human." She looked down, thinking of her own people, proud, powerful, but cold. Maybe humans had something the Zetherians had lost. After an hour, they reached the outpost. It was hidden among giant stone pillars, half covered by moss and thyme. The metal door creaked open when Ethan pushed it. Inside, old lights flickered weakly. He helped Lyra sit near a wall and checked the supplies, a few rations, a water tank, and a broken transmitter. "Perfect," he said with a sarcastic grin. "Home, sweet home." Lyra watched as he cleaned his wounds quietly. She noticed the burns on his hands, from when he had saved her. Without thinking, she reached out and touched his hand lightly. "You hurt yourself for me," she said softly. He looked up, surprised. "It's fine," he said. "I've been through worse." She smiled faintly. "Humans are strange," he chuckled. "You have no idea." Unseen by either of them, a small black sphere hovered outside the window, a Zetherian scout drone. Its lens glowed red, recording every moment. The feed traveled miles through the sky, straight to the command ship of Queen Zara. She watched the image of her daughter beside a human soldier. Her jaw tightened, her eyes filled with disbelief and rage. "My daughter? With him?" she hissed. "Prepare the hunters," she ordered. "Bring her back and kill the human." Back on the planet, Ethan had no idea his every move was being watched. He worked on repairing the transmitter. Trying to reach any human signal, Lyra sat nearby, silent, thinking about her mother, her empire, and the human beside her. She finally spoke. "If they find us, they will not spare you." Ethan didn't look up. "Then I'll just have to make sure they don't find us." His voice was steady, fearless. She couldn't understand him. How could a human risk so much for someone who had invaded his world? Hours passed. The two of them shared food, spoke little, and listened to the distant thunder outside. When night came again, Lyra asked quietly, "Ethan, do you believe peace is possible between our kinds?" He looked at her, his eyes reflecting the flicker of a small fire. "Maybe not now," he said, "but one day, someone will prove it's possible." She smiled, her eyes soft. "Maybe that someone is you." Ethan didn't answer. He just looked out into the dark forest, his hand resting on his weapon. Somewhere far away, engines roared. The Queen's hunters were coming. And though Ethan didn't know it yet, his act of mercy had already changed the fate of two worlds. The Queen's fury high above the clouds of Zetheria, inside a massive golden warship. The air trembled with anger. Queen Zara stood before the great holographic screen, her long silver robes glowing under the blue light on the screen. She saw her daughter, the princess of Zetheria, sitting beside a human soldier. A human, the enemy her empire had fought for decades. Her voice was cold as ice. "Is this real footage?" she demanded. A guard bowed deeply. "Yes, my queen," the scout drone confirmed it. The human saved her after the crash. Zara's hands tightened on her throne, the air around her vibrating with raw energy. Her golden eyes burned with fury and disbelief. "My daughter, the heir to Zetheria, touched by a human," she whispered in disgust. The guard stepped back in fear. Zara's voice rose like thunder. "Prepare the elite hunters, bring her home, and kill that human." Her words echoed through the hall, shaking every soldier's heart. But deep inside, hidden behind her rage, there was something else. Fear. Fear that her daughter had seen something in the human that the Queen herself could not understand. A weakness, or perhaps a truth she did not wish to face. Back on the planet, Ethan and Lyra were still hiding inside the old outpost. Ethan had managed to repair part of the transmitter. He tapped the screen again and again, trying to reach any human frequency. Nothing but static replied. Lyra sat in silence, her gaze fixed on the window. The sky outside was calm, but she could feel it. Something was coming. Ethan looked at her. "You're quiet." She nodded slowly. "My mother. She will not forgive this," he frowned. "Forgive what?" "You got shot down, I helped you, that's it." Lyra shook her head, her voice low. "No, you don't understand. To her, saving me is not honor. It is insult. She believes humans are less than dust." Ethan gave a small laugh. "Then she's never met the right human." Lyra smiled faintly, but her heart was heavy. She could almost hear her mother's voice in her mind, cold and proud. "My daughter will never love a human." The forest outside grew darker as storm clouds rolled in. Strange lightning flashed in the distance, blue and silent. The kind that came before a Zetherian storm. Ethan looked out. "We should stay inside. The weather's turning bad." Lyra nodded, but her hands trembled slightly. Something deep in her instincts warned her. The storm wasn't natural. It was a signal miles away through the clouds. 6 silver ships broke through the atmosphere. The Queen's hunters had arrived. Their armor gleamed under the alien moons, and their voices whispered through the comms. Target confirmed: human soldier and the princess. Orders are capture and termination. In the outpost, the lights flickered. Ethan looked up. "Power surge," he muttered. Lyra's eyes widened. "No, that's them." Before he could ask, a bright flash lit the forest outside. The hunters had landed. Ethan grabbed his weapon. "Stay here," he said. Lyra tried to stop him. "No, you can't fight them. They are trained killers." He looked at her calmly. "I've faced worse." She stood up, weak but determined. "Then I'll fight too." Ethan shook his head. "You're hurt and you're the reason they're here. I'll buy you time." Before she could argue, he was already moving toward the door. Outside, rain began to fall, and cold. Glowing droplets that hissed when they hit the metal. The forest came alive with movement as the hunters spread out. Scanning for heat signatures, Ethan crouched behind a fallen tree. Heart pounding, he whispered, "Let's see what Earth training can do against alien tech." One of the hunters moved close. Armor gleaming, Ethan waited, silent. Then he fired. The blast hit the hunter square in the chest. Sending him crashing into the mud, the others turned, firing back with blinding blue beams. Ethan rolled behind cover, his rifle overheating. He counted their positions, moving fast and low. It was a deadly dance, human instincts against alien precision. One by one, the hunters closed in inside the outpost. Lyra watched through the rain-covered window. She saw flashes of light in the distance. Ethan fighting alone. Her heart raced. She knew he couldn't win against all of them. And yet he fought not for his life, but for hers. Tears burned her eyes. "Why would he do this for me?" she whispered. Her voice cracked with guilt and something else. Love. Outside, Ethan took cover behind a rock. Breathing hard, he was running out of ammo. His armor damaged, a shadow fell over him. One of the hunters landed behind him. Weapon raised, Ethan turned just in time to block the strike with his rifle. The hunter's voice hissed. "You dare touch the royal blood human?" Ethan gritted his teeth. "I saved her." Not touched her. He kicked the alien back, firing again. The beam hit the hunter's mask, breaking it apart. As he turned, another shot grazed his shoulder. Pain flared, but he didn't stop. He grabbed a fallen plasma blade and swung it hard, sparks flying. The rain poured harder, thunder shaking the sky from far above. The Queen watched the battle through the drones, her expression unreadable. When she saw the human stand between her daughter and death, something inside her shifted. A flicker of confusion, perhaps even respect, she whispered softly. Why would a human fight like that? Back on the ground, Lyra ran out into the storm, calling his name, Ethan. He turned just as another blast struck near him. Throwing him to the ground, she reached him, her glowing eyes full of fear. He tried to stand. "I told you to stay inside." She held him tightly. "And leave you to die?" "Never." The hunters surrounded them. Weapons raised. Ethan raised his blaster again. Weak but ready. Then a loud hum filled the air. A teleport beam. A bright light swallowed them both, and in an instant they were gone. The escape bright light flashed around them, and then everything went silent. Ethan opened his eyes slowly, his head pounding, his body aching from the blast. Cold metal pressed against his back. The air smelled sharp, clean, and artificial. When his vision cleared, he saw Lyra beside him, awake but frightened. They were inside a large chamber, glowing with blue crystal walls and golden patterns that moved like living light. Above them, strange drones floated, scanning their every move. "Where are we?" Ethan whispered. Lyra's voice trembled. "We are on Zetheria, the capital world. My mother's palace." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Great. We're guests of honor, then." Lyra didn't answer. She looked toward the giant door in front of them. It opened slowly with a deep echoing sound. A group of armored guards entered, their armor shining like silver fire, and behind them walked Queen Zara, tall and graceful, her eyes burning gold. The air around her shimmered with power. She stopped in front of them, her face calm but full of anger. "So," she said slowly, her voice cold as space, "the rumors are true." Her eyes moved from her daughter to the human, a human soldier. "Who dares to touch what is royal?" Ethan stood, his wrists bound by glowing restraints, but he didn't bow. He looked straight at her, his voice steady. "I didn't touch your daughter, I saved her." The Queen's expression hardened. "You think saving her gives you worth? You think it changes what you are?" Ethan answered quietly. "It changes what you think I am." Lyra stepped forward, her chains clinking softly. "Mother, stop," she said. "He saved me when your army left me to die. He risked everything." Queen Zara turned her gaze toward her daughter, her voice sharp. "Silence, Lyra. You speak with a human's tongue now." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "Maybe the human tongue is kinder than the words of a queen." Gasps filled the hall. The guards lowered their eyes. Ethan looked at her. Surprised by her courage, Zara walked closer, her long robe sweeping across the floor. "You have been poisoned by his weakness," she said softly. Almost sadly, Lyra stood taller, her voice trembling but strong. "No, I have been shown what strength truly means." The Queen stared at her for a long moment, then raised her hand. The floor glowed with light. A force field surrounded Ethan, trapping him. "Take her to the upper chamber," Zara commanded. "I will deal with the human myself." Taken to the throne world of Zetheria, straight to the Queen herself. The guards dragged Lyra away as she shouted, "No, mother, please!" Ethan struggled against the glowing barrier, shouting her name. "Lyra!" But the doors closed between them. leaving only silence and the hum of energy. Queen Zara turned to Ethan. "Human, you do not belong in this galaxy," she said. Ethan met her gaze. "Maybe, but neither does hate." For a moment, her eyes flickered, not with anger but something else, a shadow of doubt. Then she turned away. "Guards," she said. "Prepare the execution chamber." When she left, Ethan stood in the field, breathing hard. He looked around, studying the patterns of the barrier. His mind raced, soldier's instinct kicking in. He noticed that every few seconds, the field flickered slightly, a pulse in the rhythm. He took a deep breath, timed the pattern, and when the next pulse came, he slammed his wrist restraints against the wall. Sparks flew, pain burned through his arms. But the field cracked for a second. He gritted his teeth. "Come on!" Just a little more, with one final hit. The barrier shattered and he fell to the ground free. He grabbed a broken drone piece, rewired it quickly, and used it to unlock the door. Outside, the hall stretched endlessly, filled with alien symbols and guards patrolling in silence. Ethan moved fast, staying in the shadows. He knew he had one mission: find Lyra. Meanwhile, in the upper chamber, Lyra sat by the window, looking down at the glowing city below. Towers of crystal reached toward the sky. Ships moved like fireflies through the mist. She felt like a prisoner in her own home. A single tear rolled down her cheek as she whispered, "He's out there. I know he is." Suddenly, the door slid open and Ethan stepped inside. Lyra gasped, "Ethan? How?" He smiled, breathless but alive. "Let's just say your palace security isn't built for humans." She ran to him and hugged him tightly. He winced. "Easy," still sore from breaking out. She laughed softly through her tears. "You're impossible," he grinned. "That's why humans survive." But their moment was short. Alarms blared, red lights flashing through the corridors. "The Queen knows," Lyra whispered. Ethan grabbed her hand. "Then we run." They rushed through the hallways, chased by the sound of heavy boots. Guards shouted. Energy blasts flew past them. Striking the walls, they reached a landing pad. Wind roaring as ships powered up, Ethan pointed to a small transport. "That one?" Lyra entered the control codes quickly. The door slid open as they climbed aboard. A powerful voice echoed through the speakers. "Stop!" It was the Queen, standing at the far end of the platform, her cape flowing like a storm. She raised her hand. Lightning formed in the air. Ethan stepped in front of Lyra. Shielding her, Zara hesitated, her fingers trembling. Her voice cracked for the first time. "Why human? Why protect her?" He shouted over the wind, "Because someone has to show you what love means." For a moment, everything froze. The Queen's eyes widened, her anger melting into silence. Ethan and Lyra jumped into the ship, engines roaring. The transport blasted into the night sky. Vanishing into the storm, Queen Zara stood there, staring at the empty sky, her heart a storm of confusion. Her whisper was soft, full of disbelief. "A human loves my daughter." The rain fell harder on the shining city below, and high above the clouds, a small ship carried two hearts that refused to surrender. Two souls running not just for survival, but for the truth that even across galaxies, love could exist. The truth of the heart. The stars stretched like rivers of light as the small ship sped through the endless dark. Ethan sat at the controls, his eyes fixed on the scanners, every muscle tense beside him. Lyra stared silently out the window, watching the colors of the galaxy blur past behind them. The Queen's forces searched every sector. They were fugitives now, a human soldier and an alien princess, lost between two worlds after hours of silence. Lyra spoke softly. "Where will we go?" Ethan glanced at the screen. "There's a moon ahead. Uninhabited, lots of caves. We can hide there for a while." Lyra nodded. But her heart felt heavy. Her home, her people, her mother, all gone in a heartbeat because she dared to love what her kind called unworthy. She turned to Ethan. "You shouldn't have come for me." He gave a small smile. "Yeah, I get that a lot." Her eyes softened. "I mean it. You could have escaped. You could have lived." He looked at her, his voice quiet but strong. "What's the point of living if I leave someone behind?" The ship entered the moon's orbit, a small gray world with glowing blue valleys and crystal caves. They landed near a ridge, hidden under a blanket of fog. When the engines went silent, the night returned, cold, still and beautiful. They stepped outside, their boots crunching on the glassy ground. Above them, the galaxy shone brighter than ever. Ethan looked up. Hard to believe your people want to rule this. Lyra followed his gaze. We don't rule the stars, we only pretend we do. They found a cave nearby and made it their shelter. Ethan set up a small fire using fuel cells from the ship. The orange glow danced on the walls. Painting their faces in soft light, Lyra sat beside him. Her long silver hair catching the firelight. For a long time neither spoke. The silence was peaceful, but full of unspoken thoughts. Finally Lyra said, You risked your life again and again, for someone your world hates, why? Ethan poked the fire with a metal rod, thinking, Because hate doesn't build anything, he said slowly. It only burns. Humans learned that lesson the hard way. He looked at her. Where I come from, we fight, we fail, but we keep trying. That's who we are. Lyra watched him, her heart aching with emotions she didn't understand. She whispered, My people see humans as weak. He smiled. Then your people have never seen what love can do. The wind outside howled, echoing through the caves like a lonely song. Lyra pulled her cloak tighter, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. You speak of love, she said quietly. But love is dangerous, it breaks laws. It starts wars. Ethan looked into her eyes. Maybe, but it also ends them. For a moment, their worlds disappeared. There was no human, no alien, no war. Only two souls sitting in the firelight. Lyra reached out slowly and touched his hand. Her fingers were cold but gentle. I don't understand you, she said. But I want to. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. He didn't pull away, he only whispered. Then start with trust. Far above the moon in the dark void, the Queen's flagship moved silently through the stars. Queen Zara stood before a projection of her daughter and the human. Her face unreadable, her advisors whispered around her. My queen, they must be found. This relationship shames the throne, another added. End it now, before it spreads among the people. But the queen raised her hand for silence. Her golden eyes softened just slightly. Do you not see it? She said, her voice distant. The human protected her even against death, and why? No one dared to answer. Zara turned away, whispering to herself. What does he have that we do not? On the moon, Ethan and Lyra slept near the dying fire. But peace was short-lived. A low hum filled the cave. A scanner pulse, faint but growing stronger. Ethan's eyes snapped open. He looked at Lyra. They found us, she gasped. No, it's too soon. He grabbed his blaster and pulled her behind a rock. Outside searchlights swept across the valley. Dozens of drones flew overhead, scanning the surface. Ethan took a deep breath. If they catch us, they'll separate us forever. Lyra looked at him, fear in her eyes. Then what do we do? He smiled faintly. We make them chase ghosts. He tapped a few buttons on his wrist device. His old pilot training kicking in. Small decoy beacons shot into the air, creating false signals across the valley. The drones turned away. Following the wrong trails, Ethan whispered, That buys us time. Lyra stared at him, amazed. You never stop fighting, do you? He grinned. Humans don't know when to quit. She smiled softly. Maybe that's what makes you dangerous. He looked at her. Or maybe that's what makes us human. When the sky cleared, Lyra turned to him. I used to think love was weakness, she said quietly. But maybe it's our greatest strength, Ethan nodded. It is. It's the one thing that makes life worth all the pain. She looked at him, her voice trembling. Ethan, what if this ends badly? He smiled sadly. Then it still meant something. Outside, the stars shimmered like distant memories, and in that lonely cave, a human and an alien princess sat together, not as enemies, but as something far more powerful in their hearts. They both knew that the world would never accept them. But in that small space of peace, they also knew something the galaxy had forgotten. That love, no matter where it blooms, is the truest form of courage. The mother's choice. The cold dawn rose over the silent moon, its pale light shining on the crystal cliffs. Ethan stood at the edge of the ridge, watching the horizon glow. He hadn't slept all night, his mind restless. His heart heavy, Lyra sat nearby, her hands folded, her face lost in thought. The fire between them flickered weakly. Fighting against the morning wind, Ethan finally broke the silence. We can't stay here forever. Lyra looked up, her eyes dim. I know she will find us, she always does. He nodded. Then we'll keep running. She shook her head slowly. No, Ethan. We can't keep running from my mother forever. Her voice trembled. She is not just my mother, she is the queen of an empire. He turned to her. Then we make her see reason. Lyra gave a sad smile. You cannot reason with a storm. Before Ethan could reply, the sky above them turned red. A giant shadow spread across the land. The Queen's flagship. It descended slowly. Massive engines roaring like thunder. Ethan's heart pounded. She found us. Lyra stood, her silver hair flowing in the wind. Her voice was calm but filled with sorrow. I told you. She always does. The ship landed with a burst of dust and light. Dozens of soldiers poured out, their weapons drawn. At the front walked Queen Zara, her armor shining with the light of 1,000 suns. Her presence was overwhelming, powerful, divine. Ethan stepped in front of Lyra, holding his weapon tight. Zara's golden eyes fixed on him, cold and full of judgment. So, the human still breathes, she said quietly. Even after defying a queen, Ethan didn't back down. I don't take orders from tyrants. The soldiers raised their weapons instantly. But Zara lifted her hand. Hold, she commanded. Her gaze never leaving Ethan, she stepped closer, each footstep echoing through the valley. Her voice was low but sharp as a blade. Why do you protect her? What have you done to my daughter? Ethan met her eyes without fear. Nothing but save her life again and again. Zara's expression darkened. Save her? Or corrupt her? Lyra stepped forward. Mother, please. The Queen's attention snapped to her daughter. You have shamed our name, Zara said, her voice trembling with anger. You brought disgrace to our bloodline by caring for this creature. Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but she stood tall. No, Mother. I brought truth to it. Her voice shook, but her words were steady. This human showed me something your power never could. Compassion. The Queen's lips parted, surprise flashing across her face. Compassion? She whispered, as if it were a foreign word. Lyra nodded. He saved me when he could have left me to die. He fought for me when even our own army turned away. How can that be weakness? The soldiers shifted uneasily, their eyes flickering between their queen and the princess. Zara looked down for a moment, her hand trembling slightly. Her heart a storm of rage and confusion. Ethan spoke softly. You see us as weak, but it takes strength to love in a world built on hate. Zara's gaze shot up. You dare speak of love in front of me, human? He nodded. Yes, because I've seen what love can do. It can stop wars, it can heal worlds, it can change people, and even queens. The Queen's face went pale, her golden eyes glimmering with something almost human. She turned away, as if fighting something deep inside her. Lyra took a small step forward, her voice gentle. Mother, please, you don't have to hate him. You don't have to hate humans, Zara turned sharply. Enough! Her voice cracked through the air like thunder. But then, silence. The soldiers froze, waiting for the Queen's command. Zara's shoulders trembled, her breath uneven. For the first time in her life, she felt powerless. She looked at her daughter, then at the human standing beside her. She saw the burns on his hands, the blood on his armor, the exhaustion in his eyes. He had risked everything, and not for victory, not for conquest, but for love. And in that moment, something broke inside her. The wall she had built around her heart for years began to crack. Her voice softened. Do you love her, human? Ethan didn't hesitate. Yes. The answer was simple, but it struck her like a blade. Zara closed her eyes, whispering to herself, love, the one power I never understood. For a long time, she stood silent, then slowly she raised her hand. The soldiers lowered their weapons, uncertain. Zara's voice was calm now, almost weary. Take your ship, she said quietly. Leave this place, Lyra stepped forward. Mother, what are you? Zara stopped her with a look. I cannot change what has been done, but I will not destroy what I do not understand. Ethan lowered his blaster slowly, watching her with disbelief. Lyra's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, Thank you, Mother. Zara turned away, her cape flowing like shadows in the wind. Go, she said, her voice trembling, before I change my mind. Ethan and Lyra climbed aboard their small ship. As it lifted off, the Queen watched from below. The light from the engines washed over her face. A single tear slipped down her cheek, the first in years. One of her guards approached carefully. My queen, shall we pursue them? Zara's voice was soft, distant. No, let them go. She looked up at the stars and whispered, Perhaps humanity still has something to teach us. The ship vanished into the heavens, and as the wind howled across the empty moon, The great queen of Cytheria stood alone, not as a ruler, but as a mother who had finally understood the truth of the heart. The queen's tears. The stars shimmered quietly over the horizon of the Cytherean moon. It had been 3 days since the battle. 3 days since the queen had made her impossible choice. The warships were silent now. The skies no longer burned with fire. And deep inside a small medical chamber aboard the human transport ship, Ethan Cole lay unconscious. Machines hummed softly beside him, his breathing slow and uneven. Lyra sat by his side, her fingers wrapped around his hand, her eyes tired but full of hope. She hadn't left him once. The human who had changed her world, the one who had risked everything for her, now lay between life and death. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "You promised you'd never leave me, Ethan. Please don't break that promise now." Outside the ship, the human fleet and the Cytherean vessels floated quietly in orbit, not as enemies, but as watchers. Both sides waited, uncertain of what would happen next. The first fragile thread of peace hung in the air like a breath no one dared to release. In the grand palace below, Queen Zara stood alone in the throne chamber. The golden light that once symbolized her power now felt heavy and cold. She stared at the great banners of her empire, each one carrying the mark of 1,000 battles. For the first time, she wondered what all that victory had truly meant. Her thoughts echoed. "Power without compassion is emptiness." A voice interrupted her silence. "My queen," said the guard softly, "the human still lives." Zara turned, surprise flickering across her face. "And my daughter?" "She remains by his side, your majesty. She refuses to leave." The queen nodded slowly. "As I expected." She looked toward the sky, her voice low. "Prepare a ship, I will go to them." Hours later, a small Cytherean vessel approached the human transport. No weapons, no guards, only the queen. The human commanders watched from a distance, unsure if it was a trap. But Lyra's voice came through the comms, calm and certain. "Let her come." Inside the medical bay, the door opened with a soft hiss. Lyra rose to her feet as her mother entered. The queen's silver robes flowed behind her like moonlight. For a moment, neither spoke. Zara's gaze moved to the bed, to the fragile human who had once stood against her army. Her expression was unreadable, half regret, half wonder. "He is smaller than I imagined," she said softly. Lyra smiled faintly. "And greater than you will ever know." The queen approached the bed, looking down at Ethan's face. "He risked his life for you," she whispered. "Even when he knew he could not win." Lyra nodded. "Because to him, love is not about winning. It's about standing up for what's right." Zara closed her eyes, her hand trembling as she touched the edge of the bed. "I thought love made us weak," she said quietly. "But I was wrong." Ethan stirred slightly, his voice faint but steady. "You're not wrong. Just late to learn." Lyra gasped, turning to him. "Ethan, you're awake." He smiled weakly. "Wouldn't miss this family meeting." Even the queen's lips curved into a small, tired smile. "You are stubborn. Human," she said. Ethan chuckled softly. "That's our best quality." The queen sat quietly beside them, her eyes fixed on the stars outside the window. She spoke slowly, as if each word carried the weight of centuries. "My daughter's love for you has shaken everything I built. Every belief I held." She looked at Lyra. "I spent my life teaching strength, but you taught me something greater, and mercy." Her voice broke slightly. "I feared losing you, Lyra, but in trying to control you, I nearly lost myself." Tears glimmered in Lyra's eyes as she whispered, "Mother." The queen raised a hand, brushing away her own tear, the first her people had seen in generations. Ethan watched silently, the warmth in his chest stronger than the pain in his body. He whispered, "That's the moment peace begins." For a long time, no one spoke. The silence between them was no longer heavy. It was healing. Then Queen Zara rose slowly, her posture still regal but her heart lighter. She looked at them both and said, "Return to your world, human. But know this, the door between us will no longer be closed." Ethan smiled. "Then one day, maybe humans and Cythereans can share more than war stories." The queen's golden eyes softened. "Perhaps," she said, "perhaps love will teach us all." She turned to leave, her voice calm but full of emotion. "Take care of her." "Ethan Cole," Ethan replied softly. "Always." As the queen's ship rose into the sky, a golden light spread across the clouds from orbit. The scene looked almost divine. Two fleets once built for war now standing still, side by side for the first time in centuries. The galaxy felt quiet. Weeks later, on Earth's peace station, humans and Zetherians signed a new treaty. They called it the Covenant of Hearts, a promise born not from politics, but from two souls who proved that even across stars, love could change everything. In the crowd, Lyra stood beside Ethan, her hand in his. Reporters called them the bridge between worlds, but to each other, they were simply two people who refused to give up. As the cameras flashed, the Queen appeared on the galactic screen, smiling with pride and peace. Her eyes shimmered with tears once more as she spoke to all worlds. "My daughter taught me that strength is not power, but compassion," she said. "And a human taught me that love is not weakness, but light." The galaxy listened in silence, and somewhere beyond the stars, the Queen's final words echoed softly. "Perhaps humanity was never our enemy, only our mirror." The screen faded to black, and the story of a human and an alien princess became legend. A tale passed across worlds, whispered as truth and myth alike. That love, even between enemies, can change the fate of galaxies.